And good afternoon and welcome. It is Wednesday, July 21st, just past 2 p.m. here. My name is Ryan Belmore. I'm the owner and publisher of Up Newp. Mr. Frank Prosnitz joins me. Hey, Frank.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, and we are, look at that. That is not the Secretary of State because she has joined us, so I know she is here, and I can see her. And we're going to get going here in just a minute. Well, let me bring you up. Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea joins us. How are you?
Hey, hi, Ryan. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well, and thanks for joining us. And Frank is here with us. Hey, Frank. And
let me get myself off mute here.
There you go.
Morning, Nellie. How are you?
Hey, Frank. Good. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
We can. Not only that, we can see you.
Good.
This is what a country. How are you today?
Very well. I mean, kind of like this weird haze has been very disconcerting, but it was a really good morning because I got to start my morning in Newport, actually, as luck would have it.
A lovely city indeed.
It is.
Really a lovely city. You know, everywhere you look, when they take a look at it's some of the nicest places to visit in the country. Newport is high on the list.
Yep. No, and that was at the Newport Chamber of Commerce's award breakfast, where we highlighted some amazing Newport County businesses.
Excellent. I was going to ask what you're doing down there this morning.
It's an echo.
So I was there. I gave a keynote speech this morning, and it was fun because I was able to talk a little bit about what we've been doing to really support businesses before, during, and after the pandemic.
So maybe we should start there a little bit, and you can maybe recap a little bit about what you said. And we're in a really strange place with this pandemic. You know, I think we're okay here, but this thing seems to be raging throughout much of the country. And, you know, the stock market doesn't know what to do. And there are we still have certain governors that are discouraging people from getting the vaccine, and all of that is going to hurt business. Where do you see Rhode Island in all of this?
You know, I think that honestly, thanks to Governor Raimondo's leadership, we have been in a good place for a pretty long time. That and the Biden administration coming into the picture and actually supporting a federal response to the pandemic. I think those two things. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Governor Raimondo because she was governor at a time when the federal government basically abrogated its responsibilities. It basically said, you states do whatever you want, however you want. And it was every state for themselves. And she hustled and was, you know, I remember at the time when there were no, swabs and there were no PPEs and all that stuff. So then, now come the Biden administration, it's a totally different land game. And thankfully the vaccine has gotten out. And I think that the work that she got started really has had some really good results. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done for sure. In the Latino community, for example, and in the Black community, there's a lot of concerns around the vaccine that are not outrageous, but that need to be addressed. So I know that when I've gone out and gotten my vaccinations, I've posted all of my vaccines up on social media as a way to show people, look, no, this is important and you got to get it done for the good of your family and for the good of the community.
So Rhode Island doesn't work in a vacuum. No state works in a vacuum in spite of what the Trump administration thought. And what goes on in terms of commerce in Virginia or in California or in Idaho or in Wyoming has an impact on us locally. Do we have, I know there's no crystal ball, but any thoughts on where we're going? And, I wonder about states like Florida in particular, where you have a governor who wears blinders or actually wears political aspirations, and a state that is spiraling out of control.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, what I think is really critical is that the pandemic and the investment from the federal government, right, into all sorts of resources to help support people during this very difficult time really puts Rhode Island and other states at a crossroads, right? In terms of however we use those monies and respond to this crisis really is going to set up, honestly, winners and losers going forward. So for Rhode Island, we have an amazing opportunity if we get ourselves together and invest what's coming and we do things differently to reposition ourselves as what I believe is the true leadership position that Rhode Island historically has had in this country, dating all the way back to, being the first to, declare independence from the king, and to, declare, its protest against the oppressive English government by the Gaspee, all the way to, the Pawtucket Industrial Revolution. And now, we have this one opportunity again to use these resources in a different way, to reinvent government, to really bolster small businesses in Rhode Island, to move us forward really well into the future.
How much money are we talking about? And if you had your way, how would you use it?
No, it's really millions and millions of dollars. Not all in one. The announcement comes all in one announcement, but it actually gets deployed over a series of years. So I want to say between now, people are like, oh no, all this money has to be spent now. No, not really. It has to be spent over probably the next 3 years. But now, the kind of transformation that I've done at the Department of State with making government work better is exactly what we need to be doing across the board at state and local government. So, with this windfall of federal funding, we have an entire new economy of opportunities, for example, in renewable energy that we could be using to tackle both the challenges and the opportunities of climate change. There's opportunities in terms of jobs that are being created as we speak. We've clearly started. We have a lead advantage, I think, on solar. On wind energy. We have some beginnings of solar that I think need some attention and to have a more orchestrated and coherent process for getting those sites developed. And then you have the challenges that we have coastal communities that are very much subject to climate change. Something that's really big on Aquidneck Island, I know, is the housing market. We need to be able to invest some of this in reducing the barriers to develop, green, affordable housing at different socioeconomic points, right? It's not just about the subsidized housing. When people hear affordable housing, they think, people at the lower end of the spectrum. We need to do that. But we also need, the two young people who decide to, start a home and now suddenly are completely priced out of the market and need to buy in Fall River or, God forbid, sort of further on New Bedford. Those are people that we want in our community. So housing has to be something that we tackle and address. And then
I'm huge on affordable housing.
Yeah.
But isn't part of that educating people as to what affordable housing really is, and exactly what you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh. People who want to maintain their independence, but no longer can afford to stay in a home.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so they look towards affordable housing. And if they have their independence, it takes pressure off of other parts of our economy for sure. And it's about also providing a workforce.
That's right. And you and I have had this conversation when I was formerly executive director of Housing Works Rhode Island. So it's a key issue, and Rhode Island, I think, can address it. We have a system of barriers to the development of housing in this state that really are jacking up the prices. If there's a you're starting to see, for example, the development of housing that has in-law apartments, right? So that multi-generational housing can happen again in this country. That's a perfectly reasonable option for some people. And it helps us provide housing that's affordable and supportive to different demographics, age demographics. And so we need to be able to do this. And tied to all of this, though, tied at the hip to housing issues is education. Because people, some of the communities fear housing development because, oh my gosh, it's going to increase, our demand for schools and property taxes are going to go up. Well, we need to figure that out. I believe that in the next gubernatorial cycle, we need to really put forward some measures that helps address that that intersection of housing and education in a way that lifts some of that pressure to stop the development of housing, and that re-examines the state's role in how it assists the communities.
I want to shift back a little bit to climate change, and an article that was in the New York Times over the last couple of days that suggested that the climate in Atlanta is what it used to be in Florida. The climate in Boston is what it used to be in New York. The climate in New York is what it used to be in Philadelphia, and the climate in Philadelphia is what it used to be in Atlanta. And it's only going to get worse. I remember reading a number of years ago that in time, the climate in Boston would be like that of Atlanta. Rhode Island can't do this alone.
No, absolutely. And we need to have leadership that takes into account the regional actions that are happening or not happening and encourages others to work together. And I think that that's a really important role that Rhode Island can take, again, as a leader in environmental issues. So, it's funny. When I first moved here, it was 1992. I was newly married. It's what brought me to Rhode Island. And I remember having those first few winters being really, really, really harsh. I mean, I think we had 13 snowstorms my second winter here. And I remember because I was commuting to Boston, and they always happened in the middle of the week. So it was really hard to commute. We didn't have tele options like we did during the pandemic. And, now you see this summer, and it is like a mid-Atlantic state summer where we're having all these thunderstorms. I don't remember thunderstorms here in the middle of the summer. Yeah. So I think there is absolutely stuff that's happening, and we have it in our hands, and we do have the power to start addressing this in a way that helps prevent, the rapid escalation of the climate change, of the global warming.
We never heard of a tornado before in this area, and now they crop up every once in a while.
Yeah, no, it's really, really scary in many ways.
I wanted to turn a little bit to your legislative agenda this year, and how you made out. How did it go in the legislature?
So I am proud to say that we've had a number of bills that are going to make it easier for businesses to continue to operate here in the state. So, and it's funny because when we talk about the bills themselves, they really don't sound all that exciting. It's not necessarily the stuff that you have, bill signings about, but they are measures that every little bit of it helps to make it easier for business. So, for example, we had a bill pass that streamlined the filing deadlines for annual reports. Back in the old days, when we had, mailing in of annual reports, which are the annual statements that every incorporated business has to file with the Secretary of State's office, we had nonprofits were in, one part of the year, the for-profit corporations were in another, and the LLCs were in another. So you split the mail, right, the paper mail, in 3 tranches. Well, with over 80% of filings now being done online, it doesn't make any sense, and it just confuses people because they hear, there's an annual report deadline, and people don't always hear everything, and they have to remember. So we passed legislation where it's only one filing deadline for everybody, and that's going to help small businesses stay on track and not have their incorporations revoked because they forgot and they did it differently and things like that. This goes to sort of what has been my strategy as Secretary of State, which is to pass legislation that incrementally makes it easier for things to happen in government and modernizes government as we go along. So, for example, that pivot that we were able to make during the pandemic to serve small businesses seamlessly by having them file everything online, or to do so through a Dropbox, that didn't happen overnight because in response to the pandemic. It happened because of 6 years of working on bills like the one I just mentioned to make it easier to do things online. So we now saw, even though we had a pandemic, we saw over 10,000 businesses incorporate in 2020. That's a record number of incorporations that we're already looking to supersede this year, because we've got over 7,000 already, and we're only in July. So it's been a joy to see how the legislative changes that we've made happen, have added up to having a much more streamlined and effective form of government.
I know that you've worked very hard in terms of voting reform and all of those things. Help me out a little bit, because I haven't read enough about it or understand this controversy over the email votes.
So that's what I call a clickbait article. So there's really no there. The Board of Elections. My office, under federal law, sends out ballots to military and overseas voters that have asked for a ballot overseas. We mail out the ballot, and then the Board of Elections receives them. Now, in the past, that has been done under very strict guidelines from the Board of Elections, and they can tell you more about that because that is their purview. They received the faxes. Now, because of the pandemic, and just because it's harder to get faxes in other locations, the board accepted, under very sort of strict measures, overseas military citizens ballots, and they have a way to. And again, you'd have to ask the Board of Elections in terms of their processes, but they safeguarded the ballots and made sure they count. There was really nothing else to that, and it's not a it's something that is permitted under federal law, so that our men and women in uniform and overseas voters are able to express themselves through the ballot box.
I know that's been a big issue with you in terms of trying to change some of the primary dates and so forth to make sure that our overseas military and their families have the opportunity to vote.
Yeah, no, as a 3-generation military family, albeit for the Newport people, I am Army, go Army. It's a really important issue to me to make sure that the men and women in our armed forces that are protecting us and are defending our freedom are able to exercise their right to vote. So that was, it was an interesting article in that, it put my picture on something that really is over at the Board of Elections, but there isn't anything really to it.
A couple of questions I have relative to positions you may take during the race. Some of them may be so obscure that nobody cares, but I do. I spent 10 years as editor of the Business News. Mm-hmm. I heard from a lot of business executives over that time in and out of Rhode Island who were concerned about a number of things. One, about the length of time that it takes from the filing of an application for something to places like DEM to DBR, and how long it takes to where they come to their own conclusion that they don't care which way it goes. They just want an answer so they can move on. And then I've heard from a number of craftsmen, carpenters, electricians, and that you go into one town with that has one set of regulations. You go into another town with another set of regulations. There is no consistency from town to town. There is no centralized way to be able to file and be certified in every community. How do we deal with that?
So this is part of the challenges that I hope to tackle as Rhode Island's next governor. And I believe that I'm the person to do it because you have to do it through a community sort of building process. You can't just go in and say, I have the solution, I'm going to order everybody to do it that way. That's the surest way to fail in government. So we absolutely have to streamline the diversity of regulations that we have with regards to building in this state. And I say that because that is part of the problem with the unaffordability of housing. It takes too long. Same thing with regards to decisions from state agencies. When I came in, we noticed, for example, that for letters of good standing, that is an instrument that both the Division of Taxation and my office have to work together on. It would take a ridiculous amount of time. In fact, it would be months. And thanks to the diligence,
while other states turned it around in a couple of days.
Yes. So I'm proud to say that we are now one of those states that does it in a few days, because we opened up channels of communication with Division of Taxation. We streamlined various processes. And, I'm proud to say that nobody ever calls me directly. I get one call every 6 months, Frank, where somebody will say, like, I really, really need this document. I'll be, okay. Did you try the website? Did you try calling? No, I really need it. And it's unfortunately that mentality that believes that government cannot work, quickly unless you know someone in the state government. And sure enough, I have them try it. And many documents in my office are available. If you submit it in the morning, it's done by the afternoon and emailed back to you. We just finished scanning every single corporate document in our files. All of that is free, available 24/7 in our office. All of those things help and streamline what business needs to do to get done. I share that frustration that small businesses have with regards to not getting a quick answer. That's inexcusable, one way or the other. Because every moment that you're delaying is costing that small business owner, dollars and cents. And so in government, we need to be empathetic about, it doesn't matter whether it's a yes or a no, just deliver it and let the business owner move on.
So we have an acting director of environmental management.
Mm-hmm.
We've had that sometimes for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And that is a key position. Yeah. And I wonder how much things get held up because there's nobody who really has that permanent, if you will, or as permanent as it can be, responsibility.
Well, and I think too, to be, not just in Rhode Island, but what I've seen in other states, anytime when you're going into the end of a 4-year cycle, it gets harder to push things out, especially when people are acting, because there's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen in the future. It is unfortunate. And we need to provide clear guidance to the business community in these agencies and not have politics interfere with what should be routine processes of government with business.
Let me switch to a couple of other things. Another one of my bugaboos that nobody's going to bother to look at. A number of years ago, Governor Raimondo had put in legislation that went nowhere that would have prevented certain people from running for office if they had substantial fines that were that they owed to the Board of Elections. And these were based upon their failing to file the proper documents or filing late. And many of these have grown to quite a bit. Now, I understand people will miss one time or whatever. And I don't know what the number was that Governor Raimondo used, but she had a threshold that said, if you owe this much or more, you can't run for office. And the legislature's been reluctant to move on that. Yeah,
I know. And that's a tough one, to be honest, Frank, because if I listen to my friends over at the ACLU, they get into it gets into the issues of, freedom of speech and freedom to, put yourself forward as a candidate. And it is transparent to people that, whether or not a candidate has fines. But it's troubling. It's troubling that anybody who has campaign finance fines would find it reasonable to run again. It really does. So, I think that it's an area that we need to review and figure out how we can get the Board of Elections to empower them to be more diligent in terms of what's the teeth that they can sink in to make sure that people do pay these fines.
And just as concerning to me are the number of people who owe taxes to the state of Rhode Island. It's in the millions of dollars. I think business-wise, it's over $4 million. Individually, it's well upwards of 7 million. I don't know what we're doing about that. I'll tell you what sparked it. Somebody wrote on Facebook against the any increase in minimum wage, and talk about these number of jobs that they had over the course of time, this, that, and the other thing, and they're really hard working and all of this. And then I go to take a look, and they're the number 2 on the list of people who owe fines to the state of Rhode Island to the tune of $1.2 million, and no longer lives in the state. Are we doing? And it doesn't fall under your office, I'm sure, but are we doing anything? And does anybody really care?
I care. I want to make sure that everybody who needs to pay their fair share does so. And what I'd say to this, Frank, is that one of the things that I hope to do coming in is to do an audit, if you will, a review of state functions. It could very well be that area of government is understaffed and that needs to be bolstered. We went through a series of governors who thought that cutting was the best thing. In some cases, it's about repositioning employees into other areas. For example, in my agency, I still have 58 FTEs, but they're not all doing the same thing that, they were doing when I came in. I have a much larger IT staff. My corporations division has shrunk a little bit because honestly, there's more things happening online, and the staff that's there has been trained to do things in a different way. And I think that we need to take a look at how we're running the Division of Taxation, how we're running DEM, how we're running the whole social services, human services area, so that we can use our existing government resources more effectively and more transparently.
It's going to be a pretty crowded Democratic primary. You've announced Governor McKee says he's going to run for re-election. We know Mayor Elorza has been considering it. I don't know if he's made any announcement. The General Treasurer Magaziner is seriously considering it, and we have Dr. Munoz in East Greenwich who ran before.
Yep.
And is running again, although seems considerably behind dollar-wise. I like him, by the way. When he ran last time around, I found him to be an interesting character, and I'm glad he's out there making a little bit of noise and making his presence. I mean, recently we've seen the articles trying to jump the gun on the actual filing coming later this week on campaign finances. I find more interesting where the money is coming from and where it's being spent. That it's maybe everybody's going to be raising decent money at this point or another. What's your view of this race? Why is it important that you're running?
Mm-hmm.
What are the most important issues to you?
Well, look, I would say that, in a Democratic primary, most of the people running will have similar focus in terms of the big areas. But I am the one candidate who has a proven track record of fundamentally changing how state government works. And I'm running because I want to continue making government work for people, for small businesses, bringing diverse voices to the table, where we make, policies for our state. And I want to connect, Rhode Islanders to opportunities that will help them thrive. And so, this really is a critical moment for Rhode Island. Our decisions in the next few years on some of these issues that we've talked about, education, affordable housing, climate change, are going to shape our state and our economy for decades. So, I'll go back to what I was just saying in that, of the people running, I'm the one who, has really delivered to small businesses in a way that they love my office. And we need to make sure that government is focused on, local businesses. And that's going to be my focus. That's why I've done what I've done at the Department of State, so that you don't have to be a large businesses, they pretty much take care of themselves. But it's the mom and pop shops that, in my mind, we have many Rhode Island manufacturers, marine trade companies, other communities in communities of color, that other businesses in community of color that that with a little bit more attention, a little bit more assistance from our state government, could become regional powerhouses, maybe even national companies. But we need to start with our own. And in order to help them thrive, the basic infrastructure of government needs to work well.
I've got so many more questions, but we could take all afternoon, but I don't think you have all afternoon. I guess two quick ones. Or maybe I'll leave the other one. I was going to talk about the archives, and I know they've moved. Where's the new location?
So the new location is at 1 Weybosset Hill. It's, for those of you who know downtown Providence, it's still in downtown Providence, next to the, it's where the Johnson & Wales bookstore used to be, is another way that people describe it.
Yeah, that's what we do in Rhode Island.
Yep. And right next to the post office on Broad Street. So, and it's great. And I hope that, whoever's listening and watching will take a look to see how wonderful our new facility is. It's still a leased facility. I hope that as governor, I will be able to finally build Rhode Island State Archives and Rhode Island History Center. But for right now, we were able to move everything into a very safe and secure location. I want to point out that if you're interested in the archives, please go on the website, which is sos.ri.gov. We now have some special presentations on Fridays during the summer called Fridays at the Archives, where we focus on special parts of our collections just so that people can learn more about them. So it's been one of my joys to be able to show Rhode Islanders what a robust, wonderful collection we have and how important it is to know about it.
Secretary of State, I've actually written down twice in the last 2 days to call your office, and I forgot that we had you on, so this might actually work well.
This is a personal thing, right? This is great. Everybody can hear it.
Yes. So later this week, the executive order allowing for certain public meetings to be held via phone video conference ends. Last day, I serve on several nonprofits, Lucy's Hearth in Middletown, Fort Adams Trust. And I don't think people are putting this out there or connecting the two. This applies to us too. And suddenly, with just a couple days notice, we have to go back to meeting in person. Down the line, do you think we could find a happy medium to still allow some of these meetings to take place, especially nonprofit boards?
Yeah.
It takes me 45 minutes to get to a board meeting when I could just log on. We get a lot more participation in government meetings and nonprofit meetings when people can do it from home and we get more done. Do you see a happy medium down the line?
Absolutely. I think that if anything, that is the silver lining of the pandemic, is to figure out what we had to do to reposition ourselves, we could continue to be using into the future. Absolutely.
And my question was going to be, and it's more of a legal question, whether a quorum has to be on hand in person and people can still dial in to participate. But I'll leave that to your office.
Our office or the Attorney General's office, who's the one that actually is going to get the complaints if somebody thinks you're not doing something right. I would check with them. I'm the filing part of that process. They're the enforcement. So
perfect.
So I have one last question. You and Ryan, I'm sure may have others. You've been in office now for a little over 6 years, 6.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, what do you see as your greatest accomplishment, and what is your greatest disappointment?
Oh my goodness, that's actually like the greatest accomplishment is like choosing which one of your children you like best. So I will encapsulate it in a very simple concept, which is the thing that I'm most proudest of, and what I think is my biggest accomplishment, is to show Rhode Islanders the government can absolutely work for them. That, whether it's in elections and instituting all these modernization tools that let people vote however they wanted to, safely and securely, whether it's from home with a mail ballot or early in person or on election day, and have people feel good about that. Or it's a small business that tells me how much they love my office because we make it so easy for them to go back to their business. Or a teacher that says, oh my goodness, all these resources that you've made available to us through the state archives help me be able to teach Rhode Island history and civics. Or open government, where we've made it really transparent who is a lobbyist. And we have a whole process for people being able to raise concerns about anybody who they think is an unregistered lobbyist, or to see who's getting paid by whom very easily. All of those fall under this whole big umbrella of, making government work for people. And I look forward to hopefully continuing that work as the next governor of Rhode Island. Now, in terms of my biggest disappointment, I think it's that hunger that I have to do more and continue to do these improvements throughout state government. And I like to say, all of this work that I've done in an agency that is, mostly represented by a labor union and has 15, 20, 30-year state employees who were here before me and will be here after me. But we were able to work together to deliver to Rhode Islanders a government that works for them.
I have an easier question. What is your least favorite city in town, and what is your favorite city in town? I'm kidding.
Are you kidding? No.
Yes.
Oh, right. You didn't ask the one about coffee, milk, and Dells.
I wasn't naming brands, Frank, but I asked somebody the other day whether they're more of a lemonade type of person or a coffee milk type of person.
I have to say that because I still have young children in my house. I've got 3 daughters, the youngest who is 11 and a frozen lemonade fan. I tend to have more frozen lemonades than I do coffee milk.
There you go.
Excellent.
Nellie, before we leave, is there anything you would like to add or you think is important that we ought to be touching on?
No, just that, this is a really important moment in the history of our state. And it really requires leadership that will move us forward. And I believe that, people can see that my track record over the last 6.5 years. It's one of the reasons why I announced, some people say, oh, it's very early. No, it's not. I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to be honest with people about it. There's no, smoke and mirrors political calculation. It's like, no, Rhode Islanders, when I go to the grocery store, do tell me that they like the work that I'm doing and they want to support me going forward. I'm going to give it a shot, and I hope that I can do that. And together we can work at bringing about a much better future for Rhode Island.
Secretary of State, your website for official business is sos.ri.gov. And where can people go to find out more about you as a candidate?
Yeah, as a candidate, we have the beginnings of a campaign website at nelliegorbea.com. It's a very easy one. But I also have a Facebook page, which is also Nellie Gorbea, and an Instagram that's Nellie Gorbea, and a Twitter feed that's Nellie Gorbea. So feel free to...
Technological wizard.
Yes, follow me on all of them. Sometimes a little bit behind because I'm actually the one doing the social media stuff. I like to do it myself. But those are all the avenues. And I want to say that for those of you who would like to go across the bridges on August 1st, I'm having a beach bash in my town of North Kingstown at 11 a.m. And I look forward to it's my first big community fundraiser. And I'm looking forward to having lots of people there. And it'll be a fun thing. We'll have Latin jazz playing at the North Kingstown Town Beach, August 1st at 11 a.m.
Excellent.
Very good. I want to thank you for coming on. One of the things I want to just quickly mention, you are always available when we ask, and you're transparent in how you operate, and you answer the questions, and you answer them knowledgeably, and we appreciate that. Too many times, for however many years I've done this thing, there are dances that politicians do that just make us all infuriated. But we appreciate how you present yourself and always being there to answer the questions.
Well, thank you. I know you have a role to play, and I have a role to play, and it's all better when we all talk frankly and honestly. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary of State. All right, that is Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea. NellieGorbea.com for all things regarding her run for governor, and then you have vote.sos.ri.gov for all things Secretary of State. Mr. Brosnitz, thank you for putting this together.
Well, thank you. It's always good. We're going to try to keep people informed. We're going to try to get all of the candidates on. We will give them all an opportunity. And we've had Seth Magaziner on, who's also been very forthright. Comes on when we ask him to as well. And we've had the governor on. We'll ask him to come on again. We'll try to get a hold of the mayor and Dr. Munoz, who's over in East Greenwich. so people have when all of this unfolds next year, and people are going to vote, we hope we can help be part of that trail, if you will, to keep everybody well informed and make an educated vote.
Sounds good, my friend. If anybody ever misses any of the videos, they can just head to WhatsUpNewp.com, search for Seth Magaziner, Nellie Gorbea, Dan McKee. You can find all the videos as well as any stories that we do on them right there. Thank you, Mr. Prosnitz.
Thank you.
All right. On behalf of Franklin Prosnitz and myself, we want to thank Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea for joining us. That's going to do it for us today. We will be back next time.